we have all of these buttons on top.
Mm-hmm.
So I know some of them already have information in them.
Right.
But there's like an instruction tab where there's a place to free text. Unfortunately, at this time, we're unable to enter data, but it could potentially be modified and used to, for an instance, for like cold agglutinin patients, they're known and you have your own process in place, but especially for communicating that to the rest of the floor, that can be indicated as an instruction that it's a cold agglutinin patient, must be drawn on warm, or must be drawn immediately and put on warm saline for transport or something like that.
Okay.
If we were, so there are other places to add notes. I'm trying to think, I think in this one, so there's booking notes that can be utilized. So this is strictly for the phlebotomy portion of your staff when they get the patients to draw the labs.
Okay.
Now, one thing that I want to point out is if we were to select a different book, which is by department. So one major delay that has been mentioned both or observed within the lab and mentioned by the Cancer Center is with infusion. And that concerns the blood product transfusion and chemotherapy. Let me go to the right area, that would help. So there is an infusion bookshelf,
Mm-hmm.
and if we select that, phlebotomy is actually already a part of that.
Correct.
Okay, so one, infusion can manipulate this bookshelf with lab already, and then aside from that, we could go to the specific areas where the patients are assigned for blood bank, so to say, and then comments can be entered from there as well. That didn't work. I don't want that.
Go back to the book. There you go. And what is it you're trying to do? Do open the patient now?
Yeah. So that worked.
Mm-hmm.
So scheduling comments, for example, we have the biggest issue that has been encountered is complex patients with multiple antibodies. Testing is scheduled for like a 2-hour time slot, but unfortunately the workup itself could take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
So the patient will wait for 5 or 6 hours for the blood. Sometimes they get frustrated. I know since these are ill and severely ill patients, it could affect their quality of life because they're wasting their time waiting in the clinic rather than out doing what they may be wanting to do, like spending time with family or doing things that they've always wanted to do all their life in preparation for possibly not being with us much longer. So at least here, we're in the infusion book, we can put in different comments in different areas that would direct the schedulers as well as the infusion staff to understand why there's a delay and maybe even evaluate ahead of schedule so that they can adapt the schedule based on those issues.
I think that would be a great application, a great tool to utilize within this available resource that we already have. I know that on each one of the appointments, you'll see like the little comment sections.
Yes.
And so maybe if the concern that I have right now is just our accessibility, what it's going to take, and I agree this is already built. So I think we would just need to get permissions to find out if this is specific to clinical versus laboratory staff. But I feel, especially for blood bank staff, to be able to provide that information in there, and then to see if it provides a different pop-up here in a notification so that that information is available. Because as you can see when you hover over this, so if, I'm going to close this one out. So when you hover over this, it pops up what is going on for that patient.
Oh, wow.
That already applies to that patient.
Okay.
So the information is there, and I think that would just support it even more. If it gave even another little icon for whatever resource we decide, you decide if they'll allow us to do that, to add that comment too. I think that would be a great support. So.
Do you feel that there would be any resistance to using this on an organizational level?
You know, I think that if it was all presented in the right format, the process to present new opportunities and new implementations of processes is done through the SBAR method. And then through the SBAR, once it's presented and SLT were to approve it, and then it moves forward through the process. I think that we have become so accustomed, I think we have over 65 SBARs in the last 3 years that have been put out there with constant change. So we know in the dynamics of our campus, we are constantly in change. I think that they would welcome it. I think, and I do believe they would support it as well. And I think that we would just have to make sure that the training was put in place properly, so that once we started entering the information, we could then share with the providers and the RNs and schedulers. Those are the 3 areas of the clinical side that would need to have that information to make sure that we are allowing the right amount of time for the patients.
Okay.
Right now, what we're really trying to do is encourage next day services. So when patients come in for a lab visit, which would include blood bank draw, then that would allow that workup, especially if they can see, oh, this is going to take a 6-hour workup. We're really going to have this patient come back the next day for the product, rather than waiting that, like you just mentioned.